Hello Year 5 and welcome to your Science Flipped Classroom video. Now in this video I am going to be going through key vocabulary that we will need to know when completing a write-up. Now in science, when we have a write-up, that is often done after an investigation or an experiment. So once we've conducted that investigation or experiment, we then have to record our findings, and that is done through a write-up. But in order to complete that write-up, certain steps need to be done. Now, the first key vocabulary word is objective. Now, underneath this subheading, you would write what the investigation or the experiment was all about. So if you remember, the investigation that we did recently was to dissect a flower in order to then be able to see the different parts that make it up. So for example, we have the simple words like petal, we have the stem, parts of a flower that we can see quite clearly. But then when we dissected the flower, a lot of you were able to see the contents of a flower that aren't exactly visible without that dissecting. So that is the objective. You write out very clearly what the experiment or the investigation was supposed to do or why we're doing it in the first place. After the objective, we write up our equipment. So anything and everything that is necessary in order to complete that experiment, that investigation successfully. So again, with that flower dissection investigation, we could not have done that successfully if we didn't have equipment like scissors, for example, maybe even that A3 piece of paper that you would use to lay out and display all those different parts. So equipment is often a section that is done with bullet points as a list, and you just write down everything that you used or everything that you would use for the investigation or the experiment that you're conducting. After writing down the equipment, you would then go about writing the steps, and that is often given the subheading, what I did. Now, underneath the what I did subheading, you would have a numbered list. So you'd have your 1, your first step, 2, your second step, 3 is the step that comes after the second step. So it's done in chronological order. You just go through what you did first, then next, and lastly. So there isn't really a limit to how many steps you do have, but my advice would be to set out your steps in a way where they're very easy to follow. And, you know, if one day someone was to read your steps, they would then be able to conduct that investigation and that experiment themselves. So that's really the point of writing out what you did. It's to show it in a very clear way for someone else to then one day maybe follow too. And lastly, in your write-up, you would have a section with the subheading, What I Discovered. Now, in the What I Discovered section, you would have a minimum of 2 sentences. So maybe you would have one sentence that starts off with, I found out that. Maybe that sentence would start with the alternative sentence starter, in conclusion. So you could have both as well. One sentence detailing what you found out. In this dissection investigation, I found out that the stem or the inside of a stem is called. In conclusion, a flower is made up of several parts, such as. So you have 2 different sentences minimum, and they both give 2 different pieces of information. Now, as I said, it is a minimum requirement, so you can have more sentences than just the 2 that I am showing you here, but the expectation of this section is just explaining what you found out from doing this investigation and this experiment. So that is your Science Flipped Classroom video, boys and girls. It is just going into a little bit more detail as to the key vocabulary that we use when we are completing a write-up after an investigation or an experiment. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learnt something new, or I hope this was a way to revise and to consolidate, to really learn what wording we use in our science write-ups. Take care, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.